Hello everyone, this is Professor Manos. I will be your instructor in the course Principles of Occlusion this semester. The course code RESD 2310 Principles of Occlusion. This will be a first in a series of videos that hopefully will assist you to make it through this course and enjoy the course. Occlusion and gnethology. Again, gnethology, you may not know the word. Gnethology means the coming together of teeth, or the study of the coming together of teeth. It's a highly complicated specialty in restorative dentistry, and it will assist you in every course you're taking. It's not easy, but it's quite tedious, but it's extremely interesting and important, no matter whether you're a denture specialist, crown and bridge, ceramics, CAD technician, implant technician, makes no difference. If you want to succeed in this field and be quite happy and financially happy, this would be the course you should really spend a lot of time on. There's two parts to the course. It only meets once a week for laboratory, so it's only a 3-hour lab and a 1-hour lecture. The textbook that you see on the video, there's numerous ones. I believe it's about $18 in the bookstore, and it's the best $18 you're ever going to spend. It's very, very simple. In this video, seeing this as an introductory video, I just want to run through quickly how the book works. You cannot get the book online. You cannot get it at Barnes & Noble. It's not sold anywhere. It's out of print. But our bookstore has permission from the publisher to reproduce the book for us. So there are 45 copies. Some of you have already bought the book. Those of you that were in my class last semester went to the bookstore and bought it and used it over the summer. So I suggest once the bookstore is open, you get in there immediately. We're going to use it every single day in lab. And once you get the idea of how the book works, you're going to be flying through this. We will be waxing at probably quadruple the rate you've ever done before. And you don't think that's possible, but once I teach you this technique, you'll understand it and you'll actually enjoy it. You can apply porcelain the same way, wax, or any other restorative materials with no waste and no correction, because we're going to do it perfect the first time. This was developed by a Dr. Harry Lundeen and a Dr. Everett Payne in the early 1900s. It was followed by a Dr. Peter K. Thomas. You all know PKT. You know the Explorer. You have the instrument PKT #1. So you're familiar with that name. But Dr. Peter K. Thomas was the dentist who did not develop it, but he marketed it, he promoted it, he lectured all over the world. So everyone calls it the PKT technique. But actually it's not. It was a Dr. Payne and who developed it a few years before, but they all work together. So let me run through how this book works, and we're going to do this in lab anyway, but I just want to have it down on video. So the name of the book is Tooth to Tooth Occlusion. The author's name is Thornley and Hunt. It's a very simple waxing manual. It is designed that you can sit it up. So the pages, if you notice, they turn, and the book can sit up in front of you in lab. So let's run through it. It's relatively simple. I even suggest you read the entire book before class starts. It's only under 100 pages, and when you look at it, every second page is empty. So you're only looking at about 50 simple pages. Little confusing in the beginning, but once you follow through with it, you're going to love it. Okay, so just a table of contents, and again, I suggest you read this book from cover to cover. Once you go through it, it'll give you an introduction. It'll talk about Dr. Everett Payne. It'll talk about Peter K. Thomas. It'll talk about cusp to fossa or cusp to marginal ridge relationships. It'll explain how this whole book has been designed. It'll tell you why cusp to fossa relationship, what's the advantages of waxing that way. They're going to talk about some simple occlusion that you may or may not know. Then it'll start telling you what instruments you need. We're going to be using a semi-adjustable articulator. We'll have this manual. Oh, and there are 3 lab projects. So project 1, 2, and 3. Project 1, we have the mandibular posterior teeth are prepared. They're cut away. But the maxillary is a full counter. Project 2 is the opposite. The maxillary teeth have been prepped. The mandibular teeth are a full model. Those 2 cases, not too difficult, and I'll work with you every step of the way. Project 3 is something you've never done before, the upper and lower teeth have been cut away. So there's no way to cheat. There's no way to close an articulator and smash it down and then try to wax it, because there's nothing to smash it against. And quite often in a lab, you're restoring maxillary and mandibular opposing teeth at the exact same time. And you've never done anything like this. But if you stay with me, you show up for class, you're there for the demonstrations, you will get this, especially if you buy this book. Okay, so let's keep going. Talks about instruments you're using. You're familiar with your PKT instrument, and this is the only thing we're going to be using. We're not using any large spatulas. We're not using a number 7 spatula. We're going to use a PKT instrument. We're going to apply the wax perfectly. We're going to do some slight adjustments, and the crowns will be done. And we're doing it on the semi-adjustable articulator. They're talking about a Bunsen burner, how to use a flame. I think you know that already, that it's the reducing part, the middle cone. That's a question on the National Board exam, so make sure you remember you use the reducing part of the flame, not the oxidizing. It tells you how to apply wax. I think you know that already. So now we're going to get into the waxing. We're going to start off with very simple little cones. So the first thing we're going to do, the teeth have been cut down, the occlusal surface is gone. We'll take a red pencil, we'll mark the margin, the prepared area. We'll add a little bit of hot wax so everything sticks better, just a slight film. I'll show you in lab. Then we're going to build very small, only about 1 millimeter or so high, little triangular cones. These are not cusps. They're just positioning cones that show you where the cusp will ultimately be. This is just a waxing exercise. I thought this is fun. If you have time, I don't think any of you can control wax as well as you need to. So this is just a simple waxing exercise. I can show you in lab, it's fun. I usually have the students take their instrument with a PKT number 1, and they actually will sculpt their name. They'll do the whole name and script in wax. By the time you finish that, you're good at it. So here's another exercise. They're teaching you how to blend different waxes in different parts of the teeth. So what we're doing is one part of the tooth will be done in red wax, another part will be in green wax, another part will be in blue wax, another part will be in purple wax. So each part of the tooth, and we're doing it one part at a time, will be done in a different color wax. And I'm supplying all of that, unless you already have it, but we have it here. Okay, so first thing we're going to do in lab class, the very first day, we have 3 articulations to do. That's quite a bit. So a lot of this work you're going to have to do on your own. So the first class, if we get 1 articulation done, then the other 2, you'll have the rest of the week to do it, to go into open lab or come to another class. But again, we only meet once a week. So whatever you don't finish in any particular week, you have to have it finished by the following week. Seeing that it's 3 projects, we have 5 weeks each. At the end of the first 5 weeks, I'm grading the work, done or not. And then we move on to the second, then we move on to the third. They all carry equal weight, so they're worth 1/3 of the lab grade each. When we articulate, I think you've all used semi-adjustable, the Stratus articulators. What we are going to do, and I'll do it in the second video on how to articulate, we're going to use the method, the Bonwell triangle. I think some of your instructors have talked about it, but we'll talk about it during the articulation, which is the next video. But we're going to position it in a specific way with specific angles. And we'll do all 3 of those. So let's move on. This is just talking about a custom incisal table. I don't know if any of you have used the table. You know the incisal pin. You know it touches the plate. But a custom incisal table, the way this works is you set the pin with the round end on the bottom. You mix up a little bit of acrylic. You put a little patty of acrylic on the plate. You put a little Vaseline on the pin. This is quick cure acrylic. So after you enter all the measurements on the articulator that the dentist has given you, the incisal guidance, the lateral movement, anything else he gives you, you enter the information, and then as you move the articulator right and left, this pin will move and it'll push the soft acrylic out of the way. It creates sort of a concavity. That is matching exactly to what's going on in the patient's mouth. The acrylic will then harden on the plate, and after that, every time you're adding, whether you're adding teeth or waxing or porcelain, you'll watch as you move the articulator right, left, front, back, this pin will touch that little concavity you've created. If it hops off it for any reason, then the process you just did, whether it was porcelain or wax, you put too much and you've opened the bite. So it's a nice way to check. So let's keep moving along. Okay, this talks about how to do it and all the various movements. You'll see it, that's page 35. Eventually you're going to learn all the page numbers if you use the book at all times. Again, it's showing you how to create the concavity, how to put a pin, how to do the various movements. Simple process, really easy. This actually is project number 3. If you look at the picture carefully, you'll see the upper and lower, and it's all the posterior teeth. We're not cutting away anteriors, so it's going to be premolars and molars. All the teeth are pre-cut for you, so everything's cut down, so you can't cheat. You can't smash into anything. You have to figure out how much room do you need. If you put too big a crown here, you have no room here. You put too much here, you have no room here. So you're actually waxing back and forth. But we're going to do this one step at a time. It'll work. So now, if you look here, there's no way. I mean, there is no one who knows this at this point. But by the end of the semester, you will know every single contact point in the mouth. Maxillary and mandibular. You'll know every single one of them because we're waxing them one at a time. And we're going to talk about them one at a time. So here, if you look carefully, you can see all the little cusp cones that have been positioned. Then you can see how everything seems to work in a tripod. All of these cusps relate to each other. And you can see triangles interacting with triangles. And this is how the occlusal scheme is going to work. You can see on the lower version, you can see all of the cones have been placed. Once the cones are placed, we're going to check for their accuracy. If they're accurate, and we'll do that, I don't know, maybe we'll do it in white wax, the first step. Then the next step, we're going to move on and we're going to start waxing the buccal contour. Then we'll move to the lingual. Then in a different color, we'll do the mesial and distal marginal ridges. After we do the mesial and distal marginal ridges, then we'll move into the triangular ridges. We'll do transverse ridges. Then we'll touch up the developmental and secondary developmental grooves. And all of a sudden, the crowns are done. Here's just showing the interdigitation of teeth. I think you're familiar with that so far. Here it's showing how the book goes together. Nice design of the book. When you fold the pages together, the upper and lower pages actually occlude with each other. So at this point, you really don't know any of this. I mean, if I asked you any particular question, I doubt that anyone at this point could ask. So if I said to you on the maxillary first molar, the mesiolingual cusp of the upper first molar occludes with the central fossa of the lower first molar. Most of you probably don't know that. That's the definition of class 1 occlusion. Or I could say to you, the mesio-buccal cusp tip of the maxillary first molar is directly in line with the buccal groove of the lower first molar. And all of you would be saying, oh my God, we're never going to learn this. But we're going to do this all together, and it'll work out fine. If you work with me, you show up for class, you're never absent, never late. Each day will build on itself. But if you have a problem of coming in on time or you're missing a class, you're never going to get this. So we just have to decide. It's going to be a long 15 weeks, but we'll get it. So here, if you look at this, you can see a tremendous amount of anatomy here, a tremendous amount of anatomy here. Look at all this terminology. This is not something you're going to do the night before a final exam. This is something we have to work together, and we're just going to keep repeating it over and over. So here's the way it works. This is actually the first case we're going to be doing. We're going to start placing cusp tips. Once the tips are in place, each step, you're going to bring it up to me. And it'll take me a couple seconds to show you what's right or what's wrong. Once we position all of the cusp tips, we close the articulator. And again, remember I just said the book actually occludes with itself. So each one of these cusp tips or these cusp cones, remember, it's not a cusp yet. They're just little orientation tips. Once you position these in a correct place and then we close the book or you close the articulator, you can actually see where they go. So if you look at it and you look at your lower first molar, you know you have 3 cusps out on the buccal side. You may not know where they go yet, but just as you're doing it and you're looking at the book, look, mesial fossa, central fossa, distal fossa. And you start to see a pattern. If you look at the buccal cusps, you're going to see mesial, 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 mesial. So if you have a series of teeth, it's mesial, 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 mesial. You just learned 6 contacts. It's quite logical and it makes a lot of sense, but again, you have to be with me on this. So here, once we finish now the first step, and I'll go through all this in lab, and I'm going to do the demonstration many times, and I'll probably have videos on every single step. Once we finish one part, then we'll move on and establish the buccal in a different color, then the lingual. Then after that's done, we'll move on to the mesial marginal ridges, then the distal marginal ridges, step by step by step. And there is no correction. This is something all of you are used to carving. I don't carve. The only reason you need to carve is to correct an error. But if you apply all of this wax exactly where it goes, there is no need to carve. So right there, 50% of your work is carving. But if you can eliminate the carving, you've now doubled your ability. If you can wax twice as fast, build porcelain twice as fast, your paycheck is going to be twice as large. It's quite as simple as that. If you need to keep putting it on and off, on and off, on and off, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting material, you're wasting money. So after we establish, and here you look at this contact. You notice it's distal, 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 distal. So it's very logical, a progression, and I'll just keep saying it over and over until it becomes second nature, and there actually are questions on my midterm, on my final, and on the national board exam. They will ask specific questions. They could say to you, on the maxillary second premolar, the buccal cusp in class 1 centric occlusion occludes with what? A, B, C, D. And you have to know that the upper second premolar will occlude with the distal marginal ridge of the lower second premolar. And either you know it or you don't know it. But I'm going to teach you some simple ways to figure it out also. So again, here now it's showing the wax up. It's showing each of the contacts. The terminology's there. You would go crazy trying to memorize this. But I'll teach you some simple ways. But in case you want to read it, it's all right here. So every single page has it. Let's keep moving along. So now you have finished the outer portion. Really the colors are not important, but let's all stay with the same colors. But you can really do this with any color. And in a dental laboratory, a technician will wax like this. So if it's a prosthodontist who specializes in gnathological concepts, he will hire a technician who specializes in gnathological concepts. And this is the exact way you will perform the work. You're not just going to slop it on and hope it looks like a tooth. So here we've done the outer border, which was called a fish mouth, just a slang word. Now we've started moving into the triangular ridges. If you notice, each triangular ridge has a contact. The terminology is there. There's a logical pattern. You can see where the contact is, and if you go to the opposing, you can see where it's occluding with. Right? And again, there's all the terminology. So we're going to go through this one at a time. The first project will be the most difficult, at least for you to learn. I'm working with you every step of the way. By the second project, it's the opposite, slightly different. We'll get through it. Once we get to project 3, you do the entire project 3 by yourself. I'll be there. We can have intelligent questions, but if you come up to me saying, what do I do next? What do I do next? Then we have a big problem. So project 1, project 2, I'm with you every step of the way. And then project 3, you're into it yourself. All right, and again, 5 weeks each. So again, you should be noticing by now the triangular ridges don't look anything like each other. Some of them come straight across, some of them come into the center, some of them go off to the distal, some of them go off to the mesial, some of them have double contacts on one triangular ridge. You're going to be waxing and ultimately building porcelain better than you've ever done in your life once you grasp this. So here's the anatomy. Here's all the different contacts. So if you look at it carefully, you can see all the contact points that you've established, and I will check for each one of those contact points when it comes to grading. But I will not let you go past the first step until you have it right. Then you'll go to the second step. You'll get it correct. You'll do the third step, fourth step, fifth step, and you will get it correct. And eventually, you're going to have all of this on your work and in your head. Let's turn over. Oh, this is actually project 3. If you remember the very first step, we built the little tiny cones. Well, here they are, top and bottom, so maxillary and mandibular. It looks quite confusing, but by the time you reach this level, you'll really have it down and you'll know what to do. And you're going to be absolutely amazed how fast you can do this. And hopefully you apply this technique to the building of your porcelain. So let's keep going. Here they're showing the interdigitation, upper and lower teeth, how the little cones are placed, and how the cones slide past each other in lateral movement. They do not hit each other. If they hit each other and break off, then one of them are in the wrong place, right? They should not hit straight on. They should come together. They should come together like this. They should not hit like this. That's not how occlusion works. It's cusp to fossa, or cusp to marginal ridge relationship. Let's keep going. Here's some lateral movements. Here's some more lateral movements, maxillary mandibular. Here now, here's project 3. Moving along, they're talking about, oh, this is something very interesting. I'll keep stressing it. It's called the Thomas notch. If you look at the lower premolars, buccal cusp, distal inclination, the distal inclination, you're going to see a little chip. Of course, Peter K. Thomas named it after himself because he's the one who promotes all this. So it's called the Thomas notch. The only way you can establish this is if you move the articulator in a lateral movement. The upper buccal cusp will then hit the lower distal inclination of the lower buccal cusp. If you don't do that, if you just close your articulator in centric occlusion, and then I move it, I'll wind up breaking all your teeth. So this is a nice little way to catch that you're actually doing it correctly. Okay, so let's keep moving along. So here's more on 3. Here's some more establishing the various anatomical structures, going through one at a time, all the terminologies there. You notice the anatomy is slowly developing. Moving along, now they're doing the lingual cusps. Here, the lower lingual cusps. Here, they're showing you what they occlude with. Of course, there's all the terminology that goes with it. Everything is numbered. Everything is color-coded. Moving along, moving along. My favorite page in the whole book. There is a transparency. I don't know how well you can see this in the video, but by this point, you really should be knowing who's touching who in centric occlusion class 1. But with this transparency, I thought it was a great page. Again, you'll see it when you get the book. You can move it back and forth so you'll know exactly what's touching what. So I find this to be one of the most helpful pages in the entire book. Moving along, and now when we get to the end, you look at that anatomy, and you look at that anatomy, and I doubt any of you have done wax-ups that look that good. But you'll be amazed. And again, you're getting to this level without carving, no carving. So if I see wax all over the table, then I know you're confused, you have no idea what's going on. There should be no wax on the table. At the very end, we'll take a sharp instrument and we'll just touch up some of these secondary developmental grooves just to make it look a little sharper. But other than that, that is it. So it's all building up. So again, final centric contacts. There it is, reference. And that is our book for this semester. This is our laboratory book. I'll be giving out lecture notes. I think I'm going to do a bunch of the lectures. I'll tape them and put them on Blackboard, but I will get every one of the lab procedures also done by then. And we'll be doing it in class. So I'm assuming we'll be face-to-face. From what I've heard at this point, today is... what is today? July 15th or 16th or something. So I'm surely things will change. But at this point, it looks like we're doing face-to-face lab. Everybody's 6 feet apart. Everybody masks. Everybody face shields. And, you know, we have to move along. And we're going to try to catch up from last semester, too. So some of you wanted me to assist you, those of you who were in my ceramic class. As time permits, if you get in early, hey, we can jump back to the EMAX. I can show you how to stain and glaze. I can show you how to build porcelain, anywhere. But again, the earlier you come in, you all know me, that class might start at 8:30, but I'm in this door at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you come in a little early, I can help you. You come in late, kind of hard to help you if you're not there. So this is the first video, and I'll be making more of them over the summer. And hope everything's well and you're all being safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.